Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Julia Ajinkya, and I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer at APIA Scholars. As the nation's largest nonprofit provider of scholarships for Asian and Pacific Islander American students, our mission is to make sure our students get to and through college and then translate and apply that education to a meaningful career. I couldn't be more excited to welcome you to today's conversation. On the anniversary of George Floyd's murder, I think there couldn't be a more important time to host the conversation you're all tuned into here today. Thinking about how institutions and systems in this country have been designed to serve some while explicitly excluding others. We know that higher education was never originally designed to serve today's students, and no one knows this more intimately than the students you will hear from today. I remember arriving at college over 20 years ago, now myself, and I remember feeling that I didn't belong while everyone else did. College was always a goal in my family, but my parents weren't familiar with the application or financial aid process. They didn't review or edit my college work like so many of my friends had their families do. And they didn't have networks that I could tap for internships or help me decide on my career moves. But what I did have was the courage to still show up and try my best to be the new face of American higher education, and from inside to help redesign how colleges and universities serve today's students. And today I am sitting on the board of a center that my alma mater, Amherst College, set up to ensure that more first generation and low income students are able to see clear paths to success during and after college. In my life and in my own career, I constantly channeled wise words of Shirley Chisholm. If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring in a folding chair. And my own personal charge to you all and everyone else who feels like they also have to create new, larger tables, don't settle for that folding chair. Go for the serious ergonomic chair, lumbar support, the whole works, because that's going to allow you to really lean into your experience, the skills that you use to get you to college, and then use it to make your seat at that table irreplaceable. And so now I'm going to hand it over to a good partner, Nicole Reichenbach from the Clinton Global Initiative, and she's going to introduce today's session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Julie, for your remarks and introduction and reminding us of the importance of really to show up. We are really excited to partner with APIA Scholars and highlight the work that you're doing to help students access and attain their higher education and career goals. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us from across the US and around the world for today's conversation with our panelists, who will be sharing some of their stories as first-generation college students, some of the challenges they've faced and overcome as trailblazers throughout their academic and professional journeys, as well as sharing some thoughts and reflections on how we can better support students as they navigate the pursuit of higher education and beyond. My name is Nicole Reichenbach. I am the Deputy Director of Programs for the Clinton Global Initiative University, CGIU, which, as many of you know, bring together hundreds of student leaders each year who are committed to taking action and addressing pressing challenges around the world. CGIU works to support students to develop a commitment to action, which is a project that addresses a specific challenge in the areas of education, public health, environment and climate change, poverty alleviation, and peace and human rights. Launched in 2007 by President Clinton, CGIU has grown into a network of 10,000 alumni from more than 1,100 schools, 160 countries, and all 50 states. And our students have made over 7,000 commitments to action, positively impacting their hometowns, their college campuses, and communities around the globe. For me, as someone who is passionate about international education, and as someone who is half Filipino and spent many years growing up in the Philippines and navigating a bicultural identity, I am especially grateful to be part of CGIU's global and diverse community and inspired by the work that our students and alumni commit to doing each day. We are thrilled today to have with us three outstanding members of the CGIU and APIA Scholar communities. We know that the knowledge and insights they share will be instrumental, not only for first-generation college students, which is a term used to describe students whose parents did not complete a four-year college degree, but will also be invaluable to students from around the world who have had limited exposure to the college application process and college-going experience. So with that, it is my honor to introduce our panelists, Evelyn Wong, co-founder and CEO, Cove Education and CGIU COVID-19 Student Action Fund awardee, Maria Dolajan, 2021 APIA Social Innovation Fellow, and Tuan Ho, former CEO of ScholarJet, CGIU Class of 2017, and Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree. So welcome panelists, and let's begin with Evelyn. So Evelyn, you're graduating from Harvard University this Thursday. Congratulations. Can you please share a little more about yourself and some reflections on what this moment means to you and your family?
Yeah, thank you so much for the intro, Nicole. I'm really excited to be here. As Nicole mentioned, my name's Evelyn. I'm from East LA, California, and I'm currently about to graduate from my childhood bedroom. You can see Nemo in the back there. And never in a million years would I have believed you if you told my high school self that I would be graduating from Harvard this year. But this is as much my family's moment as it is my own. And just to mention a bit more about my family, my parents had fled the Vietnam War and had grown up in a refugee camp in Thailand before coming to the US. And for me, this sort of reckoning with our history has in many ways shaped my trajectory in wanting to give back to this community. And a lot of mixed emotions this week, but above all, gratitude. This has been a super, super humbling experience, and I'm really excited.
Thank you, Evelyn. We're really excited for you as well. Maria, you were born and raised on Guam and are currently pursuing your master's degree in public administration at New York University. Can you please tell us a little more about your background and how it has shaped the work that you do today?
Hi, Nicole. Just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity to speak at this event. And well, being born and raised in Guam was definitely a blessing, and I'm grateful that my parents migrated to Guam. And so for the folks that don't know about Guam, Guam is U.S. territory located in the Marianas region. And because of them migrating to Guam, it allowed me to obtain opportunities such as attending public school, being a part of a diverse community, and also being able to pursue higher education with the ability to even afford it through FAFSA and scholarships. I grew up with immigrant parents that worked labor-intensive jobs. My dad was a construction worker, my mother was a housekeeper, and reality was that they were working long hours and not being paid a living wage, but we got by. And a turning point for me in my life was when my mom passed away when she was diagnosed with leukemia. And that was when my family started really struggling financially. And I remember seeing this post on social media about immigrant children like translating and helping their parents fill out government documents, and remembering like that was me, that was my childhood and my brother growing up. And yeah, and during that moment in my life, my family, we had to get public assistance. We relied on many community and nonprofit organizations in my island community to provide for like basic needs that we needed as a family. And so this is where like I realized like early on in my college career that this is what I wanted to do, is to give back to similar families with similar backgrounds as I did growing up. And that's me.
Thank you, Maria, for sharing. Tuan, you came to the US from Vietnam when you were 10 years old with your brother and mother. What was your experience like coming to the US and getting into college?
This is a rough question. This brings a lot of memories back. Well, just like Evelyn, I mean, my mom kind of grew up in the Vietnam War. That's when I kind of lost my grandfather. She's actually have a career built for herself in Vietnam, and none of those can apply here. She was a dentist in Vietnam. And when we come here, I mean, to be honest, I didn't expect much. I was 10. What do I know? We were sponsored by my stepdad, which I thought was going to change everything. But he turned out to be abusive, which sucks. And I had to experience that for like 6 months. And I was I'm the younger brother. I didn't know anything, but I kind of took it upon myself to turn things around. I learned English super fast within 6 months, watching Sweet Life with Zach and Cody while reading the subtitles. And then while I was going to school, I got bullied a lot. And when I think the first 2 months when I was coming home from school, I was attacked and robbed. And I didn't tell my mom or anyone because I wasn't sure how she felt. And so we went through a lot of trouble, just like moving away from my stepdad, talking to the FBI and all that stuff. And then we had to like start over, working through living in someone else's basement. We were under welfare. We had to like go to a public water thing to get water for the house and stuff like that. I mean, it's quite emotional, honestly. I thought things were going to be up and up from there, but when I was like 15 years old, I was attacked and robbed again. And that's when I was sent to the hospital for the first time. And that's when I actually experienced my first injustice. Well, not really first injustice, but how injustice has treated me. Like when I first, I was attacked and I was all bleeding all over the place. I came to the police, but the police accused me of being a part of a gang, so he didn't help me out. And so I was like, what am I gonna do? And lucky there was someone there who took me to the hospital, which sucks, but you know, this is the early stages of our superhero story. What can I say? Things are rough from the beginning, but we take it as pride and give us enough power to strive forward to make a better future for ourselves and our family.
Thank you so much for sharing, all three of you, and you know, sharing these very difficult and trying circumstances that you've endured and that you've overcome, in the course of, as Tuan says, your superhero stories and everything that you've accomplished thus far. I wanted to talk a little bit about, May being, of course, in the U.S., what's called Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, kind of billed as a time to celebrate, amplify the voices of the API community. Of course, for myself, for many others, for me being half Filipino, growing up embracing Filipino culture and traditions is something that you do throughout your life, not just for, specifically to 1 month, but throughout the year, day in and day out. And being of Asian descent is really an identity that you carry with you. And is really an integral part, at least of the fabric that I bring and kind of the decisions that I make and where I've who I am today. So my question for you all is, how have your family values and upbringing helped to influence who you are and where you are today? And how can students draw on the strengths of their own family values and backgrounds as they move forward in their personal, professional, and academic careers? And who'd like to begin? Evelyn?
Yeah, I can begin. Surprisingly, I would say that growing up, I didn't realize how much my family values have shaped the way that I view the world and how I went through life until I got to college. I would say that most of this has come from learning by example. For example, my parents never missed a day of work, even when they were sick. My dad was a kitchen helper in a local bakery, and my mom worked in a jewelry factory as a manual laborer. And I remember when I was growing up, I would see my mom, she wanted to sort of get into the healthcare the world of healthcare, and she would take classes at night to learn English and try to like catch up in order to be able to get her license. And I think these values of hard work and resilience have really taught me that a lot of times you might be behind, a lot behind other people in terms of like where you start off when you're in college or beyond. But these values are what have allowed me to overcome a lot of the obstacles that came up during college. And one thing they would always say is that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I think learning to be able to persevere, but like staying humble is a really important part of life that my parents have taught me.
Thank you, Evelyn. Maria?
I think for me, one of the things that I got from my parents specifically, and I feel like this is like a shared experience that everyone, especially first generation college students, have, is like being very resourceful in terms of like, how to get things done, and just having that grit to just keep on going despite the fact that there may be obstacles ahead of us. like when, you know, as I'm sure everyone like experienced this, like, you know, feeling like you were discriminated against, or, you know, there were like obvious biases in terms of like why you didn't get a position, why you didn't get a job, or like, you know, why this opportunity didn't come to you. And, you know, time and time again, it's always because, you know, it's not meant for us at that time and that there's something better ahead. And so like, those are some of the things that I keep in mind, especially now with COVID and just trying to navigate life amidst the pandemic. I try to keep an open mind and keep that same sort of ideology that my parents always taught me, which is, you know, to just never give up and just keep on going, you know, no matter how hard it gets.
Thank you, Maria. Tuan?
So honestly, I didn't really talk to my parents whatsoever. They had no influence on me whatsoever. So like when I grew up, when I came to the US, my mom was just spending so much time working, like so much time working that I barely get the chance to see her. I didn't get a chance to see her until probably when I was in college. Like, and the whole time I was just curious about the world. Everyone, like in Asian communities, there's so many myths and so many random things that you were taught that you don't really have an explanation, right? But I was just like so skeptical. Is this scientific base? So I'm so curious about everything. Why is it? I mean, I don't have any real example on the top of my head, but you know what I'm talking about, right? All this misbelief, and I just question it all. I don't really have a role model growing up. The whole time with my parents, like my mom was so overprotective after I got attacked and robbed that she doesn't even let me out the house. And we don't even have any real conversation until I really fought for it. I had a conversation with my mom, like I really want my freedom for me to grow and learn. And so I branch out, apply for being part of a whole bunch of different programs, being in summer camps and being an after school teacher, volunteering, learning from different people, learning about this world, what shapes our moral ethics and all that stuff. And I just slowly learned until actually I was a really bad son to my mom. I thought, you know, she was just there to make me unhappy. Like she just say no to everything until I was like 19. Then that's when my brain kind of wrapped its head around and realized, holy crap, she has sacrificed so much for me. And I'm just being super ungrateful. Like, and that's when I realized, oh my God, I have so much to do. I feel so indebted to her, but it doesn't feel like an obligation. It feels like a duty. And so like, that's where I sort of draw my inspiration from. It's like, I want to grow up. I want to get her a house. I want to get her a house with a pool and a backyard for the dog. And then like, I ask her from time to time, hey, like, what do you really want to do? She's said, oh, I really want to own a coffee shop one day. I was like, okay, I'm going to get you that. So this kind of act like an inspiration when I was 19 years old. And it pushes me further. And it's instead of actually having someone who showed me the way, I found a way by being curious, essentially.
Thank you for sharing that. We're going to talk a little bit now about overcoming challenges and barriers to success. Applying for college admissions, as well as financial aid and scholarship opportunities, can be a daunting experience, especially for students who are having to balance academic pressures with financial stress and family responsibilities. Not only can it be more challenging for first-gen college students to access higher ed, but once enrolled, data from the National Center for Education Statistics shows that first-gen students tend to graduate at lower rates than their peers with parents who received a four-year college degree. So this question for Maria and Evelyn, what are some of the challenges, both expected and unexpected, that you faced both getting into college and during your academic careers, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, so for expected challenges, I would say definitely academics. I was also warned extensively about the cold weather, especially coming from California. It was really shocking to me that you couldn't just walk outside in the middle of December in shorts and sandals. And I would say unexpected challenges was that I didn't realize the extent of wealth or socioeconomic inequality that existed in the US until I got to college. And I think I really struggled my first 2 years because it was sort of like learning this new language for a world that I had never been exposed to. There was little things like having to pack your whole life into suitcases every fall because like we couldn't afford to get our whole family over to help me move in. And all of a sudden, there's also things like office hours and networking that I never really knew the politics for. But I think the biggest challenge that I had going through college was that all this time I could never shake off this feeling of immense guilt because it was crazy to think that one day you're in East LA, maybe going through food or housing insecurity, and the next day you're like eating dinner with the deans of the college where everything's sort of given to you and you don't have to worry about food or housing. And I think of the friends that I've grown up with and I love, and I would get so frustrated whenever I was stressing over like problem sets while my friends back home were working full-time jobs or being full-time students trying to pay off debt. And I don't know that there's ever a way to shake off that feeling of guilt or discontent, but it's definitely fueled this refusal to be complacent in a world where everything is given to you. And this tension is what inspires me to give back every day to that community that raised me.
Thank you. Maria?
So for me, I think the two main challenges I face as a first generation college student would be figuring out how to handle my imposter syndrome and also learning how to step out of my comfort zone to build relationships with people. So in terms of like my imposter syndrome during the first year of college, I feel like it was very intense. Like I had peers with siblings or parents who were college graduates that had the network. And here I was literally navigating this whole entire college process on my own, and also with the help of, one person, which was my academic advisor. But it was, it was daunting. And I believe like many first generation college students like ourselves can relate to this because, the FAFSA alone was an obstacle in and of itself, like, especially, for me, like I would say, and, before college, I would consider myself as such an introvert, and I kept to myself or like to a close circle of friends. And I overcame these challenges of dealing with imposter syndrome and pushing myself to build genuine relationships, because I constantly tried to remind myself that I worked hard to get to these spaces and that I belonged in these spaces. And I think as first gen college students, we always downplay our accomplishments and always strive for perfection, even when, our existence of these higher education spaces and these institutions, were, since its creation, weren't even designed for us, as Asian and Pacific Islanders. And we are here like breaking generational, curses. And many of us are, basically like the hope that keeps the fire in our families sort of, alive, and communities as well. And I think, that is something I continue to remind myself, that I deserve to be here. And, just like many others that, worked hard to get here.
What was the question again?
Absolutely. Actually, Tuan, I have a specific question for you. Thank you so much, Maria and Evelyn, for answering that. So while in college, you founded ScholarJet, a program that awarded roughly $80,000 in prizes to help people pay for college and pay off their student loan debt. So what was your experience like, Tuan, graduating from college in 2018 and then transitioning into the workforce as a full-time entrepreneur? I'm sure a lot of our alumni would definitely, value hearing about this.
I think you skip a step there. So I want to share sort of like my journey into even getting into college in the first place. So like in high school, I think, I don't know what's gotten into me, like maybe because of the shows I watched, the anime I watch, and all the superheroes movie that I watch, but it's like, I wanted to stand out. Part of me is have this heroes complex of wanting to be the savior or wanting to show the world that essentially kindness is the way. And in order for us to make things right, we just got to work harder. And so I think in college, back when the SAT was out of 2100, when you're Asian, everyone wanted to get the Ivy League scores. So the first time I took the SAT, I got a 1500. And it's like, that's way too low. That's like getting a 900 out of 1600 right now, out of the 1600 one. So I took 27 practice exams within 3 months and got my score up to 2000. Not enough to get into Ivy Leagues, but enough for Northeastern to consider me. But when I got accepted to Northeastern, I couldn't pay for it. I mean, all of this, I was getting help from all these programs like You Aspire and all of these nonprofits that helps kids with low-income students. So I was immensely grateful for that, but they're not going to help me pay for college. I think the bill was about $40,000 a year back in the day. My mom couldn't pay for it, nor did we get the money. So I wrote 120 essays to apply for 40 scholarships. And I earned myself about $500,000 worth of scholarships. I went to Northeastern on a full ride. So I mean, the mentality was there. It's like, I'm gonna outwork everyone. I'm gonna put in the insane amount of work that no one can perceive. But that also alienated me from my high school friends. I didn't have a lot of friends because I was this oddball who's always striving for more and more that no one can really relate to. And part of me too, I'm an introvert, honestly. I'm a trained extrovert. And so it took a lot of effort for me to even have conversation with people and connecting to and make friends. So that was tough. So in college, I kind of, I studied mechanical engineering, which is even introvert like to the max over there. So I didn't know, how to make friends though. And so one day I just decided to read books. I'm just like, well, actually I watched a video on Will Smith, and he says that the key to life is running and reading. Running is to show that doesn't matter what you do, you can always keep on going, essentially. And reading is essentially saying that there's not a problem in this world someone haven't solved and haven't written it down in a book, right? And so I ran on a reading spree. I read 250 books in 6 months, more books than I read in my entire life combined. And I've learned so much from like how to interact with people, psychology, marketing, investing, business, history. All of that combined just exploded my mind full of knowledge. And that's when I started my company. I started my company because I wanted to find a way for students to earn scholarships without having to write essays. I coined the term action-based scholarships. I started out by just wanting to give away $1,000 and ask a whole bunch of friends like, hey, can you contribute like $500 here or like $250 here? And then I just want to give out $1,000. And then throughout all of the work I did, it turns out to be $80K overall. And our business model translated into that so that when someone showcased their skills to earn scholarship, they are also eligible to get an internship or an entry-level jobs at a tech company. So we were selling our models to big tech companies in Boston, right? And so you're wondering, how the heck do you do this? I mean, unfortunately, we had to shut down the company because of COVID. And so I'm essentially working on something new now. But at the beginning, it was rough. You get the knowledge by reading. You get the knowledge by meeting people who have experience. You ask questions. You have to become incredibly optimistic and incredibly confident that you can get it done. Like, I was working 80 to 100 hours a week while studying for mechanical engineering. Like, it was a nightmare. There was no time for girlfriends. There was no time for friends. It was really hard to keep that up. And I knew that I had to work my mind and my body. So I was waking up at 5 in the morning, go to work out, and then started my meditation and reading, and then go to work and studying for a class. It was nonstop. It was this pride kind of come from the fact that, well, I wanna give back to my mom, but I also want to create a world and then make a statement that you can be extraordinary and not have to follow the mode in the business world. In a sense, you have to showcase if there's anything that I could stand for, it was that kindness and compassion is the only way to make this world better. And the only way for us to showcase that was to be successful despite of our circumstances. And that's what I wanted to do.
Certainly agree. And I know you touched a little bit on our next question, which is that starting in 2020, so many of us, especially students all over the world, have had their lives upended by the COVID-19 pandemic. As we know, the pandemic has changed the way we work, the way we study, the way we live, and COVID-19 still continues to have a very devastating impact in countries around the world. For our panelists, I know that in part for Maria, it shifted your graduation timeline. For Evelyn, it led to the start of your nonprofit, Cove Education. And then of course, Tuan, you mentioned ScholarJet and having to make that difficult decision to close the company. But would love to hear a little more, Evelyn and Maria, about the impact that the pandemic has had on your personal, professional, academic journeys, and any lessons learned or silver linings that you think would be good to share with our student audience as we move forward in this point of time.
Sure. So I think COVID definitely provided an opportunity to take more risk because everything was pass-fail in our university. Sort of allowed me to take more risk in my learning experience and pursue things that I normally wouldn't think about in a normal year. I remember back in March of 2020, I woke up to an email from our university administration saying you had 2 days or 2 or 3 days to pack all your stuff, leave campus and find a way to get home. And I remember the chaos of scrambling to figure out what I was going to do for the next few days and sort of where to store my stuff and how I was going to find the money to fly back home to California. And in this moment, I remember feeling really displaced from our educational community because to have this sense of belonging and family that I felt on campus taken away in the period of a few days was super jarring. And when I finally got back home, I was hearing about a lot of school closures in our area in Montebello and Compton and LA Unified. And I noticed that a lot of administrators and teachers were really burnt out trying to get food and housing for their students. And education had sort of become an afterthought or wasn't at the forefront of these students' lives. And I think this feeling of educational displacement and wondering whether students in our area were feeling the same thing was what ultimately led to the beginning of Cove Education. And I definitely didn't think it would grow to the extent that I did when I first started it. But in a way, I think COVID really helped me be more willing to take that risk and try something with like a high rate of failure or high possibility of failure. And yeah, I think like the biggest lesson learned from this is that something that I didn't realize was that education is so much more than explicit payoffs, because a lot of times when we're trying to support first-gen or low-income students, our thinking is always, how do we get high test scores or how do we get more students into college? But this has really helped me redefine my idea of educational access as providing a space and a deeper sense of normalcy and belonging where students can be kids while they can.
I just want to make a comment, Evelyn. I just want to point out that it's a great character trait that while you were experiencing difficulty for yourself, all you thought was, how can I help other people? Exactly. That's what makes us who we are.
Absolutely. Maria?
So the decision to push back my graduation date was a very hard thing to accept. I knew I wanted to start going to therapy and working on things I've experienced at work, in my life. And I value my education in NYU Wagner and how it has strengthened me academically. But I was finding myself slowly chipping away, like trying to juggle too much and not pursuing my passions, advocating for reproductive healthcare in Guam, or even putting like 100% in my work or even in myself. And so I decided to take a break momentarily from grad school, and it has been one of the best decisions I've ever made for my mental health and to also put time into my professional career and building Familao Rights, which is a community organization based in Guam that, advocates for reproductive rights, accessibility, and healthcare. And so, if there's one thing that I can share with students who are going through a similar experience in terms of like mental health, in terms of figuring out what to do in this time, and are noticing that their mental or physical health is deteriorating because of the global pandemic, or, even just finding yourself not giving 100% to the things that you used to pre-pandemic, is that, don't be afraid to step back, give yourself some grace and focus on things that matter in your life. And, higher education will always be there, but your sanity, your physical health, your mental health, those are things you can't just, brush off and, put on hold.
Thank you so much for sharing, Maria. Definitely mental health is absolutely a #1 priority. So we really appreciate you sharing that. Tuan, is there something you wanted to add? I was going to go into the next question, which is for you.
No, I mean, Maria brought it up, and I don't want to make me sound like somebody who's like hard-headed and like always about working harder and all that stuff. I mean, to be honest, when COVID happened, it was like life-changing for me. I think like for a lot of people for the worse, but for me at least, my personal growth was for the better. Like I've never seen a therapist in my entire life. I think I signed up for a therapist like a month ago. I mean, obviously with a company that you've been working on for 5 years, day in, day out, it's like your baby. And then in March, it was pretty clear that our business model wasn't going to grow. Like we raised a whole bunch of money. Like we actually raised a lot of money prior, at the beginning of the year, but no one knew what was going to happen. So we told our investors like, hey, we're going to have to figure out a way to pivot. So at the very end, my head was like, I'm going to put in every single thing that I can, all of my effort to turn this around, to maybe turn this into like a TikTok company to help people or something like that. So we did every single thing that we could. That I was so insanely, like I was drinking so much. I was like, I wasn't taking care of my mental health at all. The least that I was thinking about was myself, because I worry so much about my employees, my team, and the people that I feel like I need to, like essentially like answers to the investors and all of that. And so I just kept going. It took a huge toll on me. It took like until I realized that I had to close down the company. I kind of went into a huge depression, not gonna lie. And I dug myself out after 6 months. It was rough. So, I mean, I advocate for the fact that you should reach out to people, even when you feel like you're all alone. Just keep trying. Like, and if you have access to professional help, you should. Because I tried to get a therapist for months on end, and I couldn't. And that because, low-income neighborhood, low-income healthcare plans, what can I say? But hang in there if you're going through difficulties. And there's people who reach out to me. They're literally, during COVID, there's people who reach out to me just randomly asking to check up, but I'm like, let me see how I can be there for you. I turn the conversation into them, and it turns out they're experiencing so many problems that I wish that I could do something about, but the least that I can do is be there for them. And I think this is a quote from the movie Avatar or something. It's like, sometimes instead of focusing on your own problem, it helps to focus on other people's problem. And then eventually you'll be able to realize things for yourself. But, all this time I was able to undergo a lot of self-growth and understanding a lot about myself. And that will help me move forward for the better.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing. And it is, very important to reach out. So appreciate you sharing that message. We are running short on time. I did want to acknowledge the audience for sending in some great questions through the registration form. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get to all of them. But very quickly, I can read one out. This one is from Valentine Zhu, a student at Cornell University in New York. How do you navigate being a first-gen immigrant and giving back to your community? If anyone would like to quickly answer this question.
I can go for it. I think as a first generation student, there's always this tension of wanting to pull away and achieve something great to sort of propel your family forward. And also this almost opposing tension of wanting to go back and give back to your community. And I think finding ways to reconcile the two are definitely important things to consider when you're thinking about your journey. I think putting yourself in a situation, as many first-gen students are, where we learn to navigate different worlds, has given me an awareness of the stark extent of inequality that exists in our society. And using that as a way to motivate yourself to give back, or carving time out of whichever career trajectory you're going through, is really important.
So like times 10, everything what Evelyn said, agree with everything. But one thing I always tell myself is like, a part of where I'm going is like where I'm coming from. And I think like when I mentioned my story about like how nonprofit and community-based organizations like have, you know, assisted me and my family, like that's where I want to be, or in that position of assisting my community. And, you know, how I navigate that as a first-gen immigrant, you know, for my community is, you know, still just keeping myself grounded and like, you know, keeping myself aware of like what issues are happening, you know, whether it be, you know, in the Philippines or on Guam, or even here in New York City, you know, within my Filipino community, within the Asian and Pacific Islander community. I feel like that's so important. And, you know, with social media there, and, you know, with internet and everything, there is no excuse for us to like not be aware of like some of the things that are going on. And so, yeah, that's how I would do it.
I just want to add, give back, not because you have to. You do it because you want to.
Great. And just very briefly about, you know, as we talk about strengthening support systems and building community, the three of you are really, you know, integral part of the CGIU and APIA Scholar communities. Can you share, you know, very briefly your experiences with either of these programs and what they have meant to you?
I'll start this time. So I knew what I wanted when CGIU was on campus. I had a plan. I wanted to start a company. This is what I'm going to do. I knew exactly what I need to do. I need to build my network. So during the event, I hit up every single one of the speakers, and even in panels that I couldn't get into, I pretended that I was there and hit them up on LinkedIn, send a message, hey, great job on that panel. Can we talk? So I was networking like crazy. And the things that allows me to do that, because I had a goal in mind. I wanted to do something. But even so, even if you have questions, even if you are curious just about the person themselves, you should reach out, ask them questions. Trust me, there's nothing more than a person wanting to talk about themselves, all right? So it's always good to reach out, build your network, because that's where your success is going to come from.
I agree with everything he said. It definitely, I think, even like for me, like after graduating, you know, finishing undergrad, it definitely helped being a part of the APIA Scholars organization, because even though I, you know, completed undergrad, I still had, you know, support systems and have actually built up my network through a lot of conferences and networking opportunities, you know, pre and post COVID, and, you know, just connecting with other scholars from similar backgrounds, and, you know, even from those that are reaching out for advice in terms of like grad school apps, or, you know, simply just wanting to connect. Like, I can definitely say, like, since I received like the opportunity to be a part of the APIA Scholars organization family, it served as like a pillar in my life, and, you know, it continues to play an active role in what I do professionally, socially, and academically. And, you know, it's a great community, and I hope anyone here, any of the audience who are APIA scholars, you know, I hope that you're able to build your network the same way I did, even though, you know, we're living in a global pandemic. I believe that's very possible with the opportunities they provide, and, you know, it's out there. So, you know, you got this.
So I was like Chuan, part of the CGIU community, and I think personally being part of this group has felt a lot like being in a kid's playground again. I'm always reminded of that unadulterated passion to sort of create the world that you want to live in. And there's so many people that are super excited and exude this positive energy to create change. And sometimes when we're trying to solve like real world problems and trying to find solutions, it's easy to lose sight of that feeling because there's so many different barriers that come at your way when you're trying to think of concrete ways to help society. And I would say that it's super surreal to be able to work with people who are not afraid to try to overcome these barriers by taking on super crazy ideas that end up working out really well.
Thank you, Evelyn. Okay, final question. Any final words of advice, encouragement that you'd like to give other young trailblazers around the world, whether it be those thinking about applying for college, attending college or grad school, or looking to start their professional careers? Very brief, quick advice. We could just go quickly around. Tuan, you want to start?
Oh God, I'm still thinking. Someone else go.
Maria?
Advice, I would say, you know, never give up. Never like take what others like, take it with a grain of salt. Like if it's like harsh criticism, and always keep like a close circle with you of, you know, genuine friends and networks, and just do your best in what you do, and know that, you know, a lot of you are like basically like breaking the mold, you know, breaking generational curses and doing your best to like serve your communities and your family. So just never give up.
Echoing everything that Maria said, I think she hit it right on. I would just add that if there was one thing I would tell to my underclassmen self, it's that you will have, as first gen low income students, you'll have additional challenges. And for many of them, you'll have to learn how to navigate them yourselves. But no matter how much smarter you think the next person over is, you'll always have something that no one else has compared to you, and that no one else can claim, which is your experiences and the challenges that you've overcome. And so just keep that in mind, and remember that when you're at a point where you can help others do the same.
I don't want to be cliche or anything. I don't want you to be extraordinary either. My one advice is be yourself, but louder.
Beautiful. Gosh, thank you so much. I'm writing everything down. Never give up and be yourself. And just thank you so much for everything that the three of you shared today with our audience and with all of us. And thank you, on behalf of APIA Scholars and CGIU for being here and taking the time out of your schedule. So please keep us posted on your journey. Please know that, we're here for you. And thank you all for being here, and to the audience, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Nicole.
And congrats, Evelyn. Enjoy Thursday.
Congrats, Evelyn.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you all. Take care.